Jesus was hitting me with. How does somebody know what they want if they've never even seen it? You thought about that? Steve Jobs, I think, whether he knew it or not, he took a spiritual reality and applied it to technology and completely revolutionized an industry. All of you guys have computers, or have at least seen one, right? Now, this is what's crazy, is I think that that's why these guys left everything to follow Jesus. It's almost like if somebody showed up and in your mind, you've been wondering like, oh my gosh, what happens if you put peanut butter and jelly and bread together? I just wish I knew. And somebody comes up and goes, sandwich. Right? That's kind of what Jesus is doing, right? How does somebody know what they want if they've never seen it? And I think that that's what Jesus is hitting with these guys. Now, in that day, like, you had to be part of an elite system to be to follow a rabbi, right? So there were rabbis that would go around and would say, hey, come follow me, be a part of my team. It was kind of like making the dean's list. So the mundane, mediocre people weren't really asked to do this. It was the special people that got called to be on these sort of elite following a rabbi team, right? And so the disciples that we see in the Gospels were kind of doing the family business. They were like at best mediocre. They weren't the high society people. They were kind of like the random humdrum dudes, like fishing and stuff like that. They were my kind of people. And so for me, I'm kind of at best mediocre, except for my hair and stuff. Mary Kay. Anyway, but for me, like, I'm at best mediocre. And there's not that much glory in my life. I have days where like there's something spectacular that happens, but most of the time my life is just mundane. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm in the mundane, I ask really soul-searching questions like, what is the point of life? How many of you guys have asked that question, right? Like, you're sitting behind your operating system, and you're bored, and you're like, is this all there is to life, right? And you have these sort of gnawing, like aching questions going on in your life that you're afraid to ask, so you go home and you watch Netflix, right? And I feel like Jesus shows up on the scene with these guys in the midst of their mundane reality, and when they see him, they recognize the answer to that ache. That they didn't know what they wanted until they saw him. And that's why he can just come on the scene like a boss, follow him. But just imagine this, you're in your, I don't know, I used to work in the media services in the library. It was so boring. It was so boring. And you know, kind of like when you have like nothing left, you have like maybe 50 minutes left in your shift, and the random person comes in, like, and you're about to go home. How annoying. I had a bad attitude in college. But so like I'd be like, I had an hour left in my shift, and somebody would come downstairs and be like, oh my gosh, my projector's not working. And I'd be so annoyed because I'd just be ready to go home and numb that ache, right? Just like eat cheesy mac or clean pockets and watch a movie. But still, anything to get out of work. So this is what I'm saying, like, picture Levi, that's his existence. He's sitting at the tax collector booth, and here comes some guy in some sandals with a big fat grin on his face, and for some reason, like Matthew was saying, his heart begins to beat. Like, who is this guy? Why is he looking at me like that? And he comes up to Matthew at his tax collector's booth, and Matthew's got butterflies, and he's like sweating. Like, what is going on? And Jesus isn't really saying anything. I picture Jesus grinning. If you don't picture Jesus grinning, you haven't been reading the Gospels. He's a very happy man. So he's walking up to you, and he's grinning. You got 50 minutes left on your shift. You don't want to help this dude. You want to go home. And he looks at you, and he says 8 letters, 2 words, and he says, follow me. And in that moment, Matthew has a decision to make. And in this moment, you guys have a decision to make. And hopefully you'll make the right one by the end of the week. And so you don't know why your heart's beating, you don't know why you're sweating, and you don't know why you feel so crazy, but something in you is like, I think I'm gonna do it. So he takes the risk. He cuts the road, he burns the bridge, and he says, yeah, I think I'm gonna follow this guy. And they just go, no, where are we going? No, nothing. He just gets up and he follows. Listen, God is our maker, and he knows how we're wired. He knows that we're wired for him and him alone, and that's why he can be so bold. That's why he doesn't have to qualify the question. It's like when the disciples met him, and when they saw their present reality, 2 words was the catalyst for immediate discipleship. Nothing else was working. Netflix was not cutting it. Lean pockets, they're good, but they're not cutting it. And so they left everything and they followed Jesus. Now, how many of you guys were like annoying why people, like when your parents would tell you stuff, you would always ask, why? I like that about myself. But I'm a why person. And so while I was in college, I read this book. It was a really, really good book, and it was called The 7 Longings of the Human Heart. I like people. I like to study people. I like airports. They're so fun. Like watch people say goodbye and hello. So I like to watch and ask why. Again, my life is mundane. So I was reading this book, and in the book, it's called The 7 Longings of the Human Heart. And the authors of this book, they attempt to identify the 7 major longings within the heart of every human that exists. And what I liked about this book is I think it actually hits some stuff on the head. So I wanted to share some excerpts from that book with you guys to hit this question of following Jesus. It says this: God created the human spirit with 7 longings that draw us to him and reflect his glory in us. They are the longing for the assurance that we are enjoyed by God, the longing to be fascinated, the longing to be beautiful, the longing to be great, the longing for intimacy without shame, the longing for significance with lasting impact, the longing to be wholehearted or passionate. Each longing is a reflection of God's personality. We are made in his image, thus we have these longings. They give us insight into how God created our spirit. They reflect his creative genius in how he designed us. These designer cravings will be in us forever. We have a great appetite for pleasure. Therefore, we cannot remove these longings by repenting of them. Let me say that again. We cannot remove these longings by repenting of them. Rather, we repent of seeking to fulfill them outside of our relationship with Jesus. The tension of life is in seeking to satisfy these longings outside of God's will. Each one of these longings has a counterfeit. I love that because I think they're right? Like, who stands in line for 2 hours for a 2-minute ride unless there's something in you that wants to be exhilarated? Like, who spends all kinds of money to get everything tucked on their face unless there's something in you that longs to be beautiful and adored? I sometimes, well, I don't do it anymore because I don't think it's going to happen, but I used to write real pretty cursive in my journal because I thought maybe one day somebody's going to find my journals and I'll have lasting impact in the globe. That's not going to happen. You guys, don't joke me. You guys try to be profound on Twitter because you want impact, right? There's a longing in your heart for lasting impact, right? I know I'm preaching, right? You guys all want intimacy without shame, right? Like, these guys, I think they did a great job. 7 longings, and they're hitting it, because you guys are like, yeah, it's true, right? Intimacy without shame. We all want that friend that we could be totally vulnerable with that won't blast it and tell our business. We all want to be loved and feel safe. Guys, these are longings put in us by God himself because we were made for God himself. You get that? You want to be great because a great God made you. You want to be beautiful because God is terrifyingly beautiful. He is fascinating. Do you know there's creatures around, I'm not supposed to say this, but there's creatures around God's throne that have eyes everywhere. What do you need all those eyes for unless there's so much to see? That's what God is saying about himself. He is utterly fascinating, and he made you for himself. I think that this is why the disciples leave everything to follow Jesus so quickly. They get it. Could it be that standing before them is the answer to every cry and longing they've ever felt in their life? Sandwich. I didn't know that's what I wanted, but now I see you and I know it's you. And they leave everything and they follow. But this is the thing. Remember, I was telling you guys that Jesus is not advertising. So he's not like, I'm a product to be consumed, right? He's not trying to sell you on something. This is not even for his benefit. It's for yours. Like advertising agencies, right? The goal, I'll tell you a secret. The goal is brand loyalty, right? So if I can get you to buy my stuff enough, you actually think Pepsi tastes better than Coke, which it doesn't, but you think that. If you're a loyal customer, right? The goal of advertising is brand loyalty. And so what Jesus is saying in these passages is he's after long-term obedience, but he's not selling you a product. He just knows you're made for him, right? That's what's beautiful about him. So again, I think that the longings in our hearts, the reason I'm going into this is because this week we're going to go into more detail about why we follow Jesus and where are we going and how do we follow Jesus. But I kind of want to like confront all of you right now and just tell you, you were made to follow Jesus. And if you're not following Jesus, what are you doing? Can I be audacious like him? That's almost the way he confronts the people in the Gospels. He's like, what are you doing? Follow me. And I think that's the question he has for you. So I want to hone in on one longing, and then we'll finish. Because I want to talk about what does that look like? Like, okay, maybe I am. Maybe Tamice is not crazy, and maybe there's a little bit of validity to the fact that I might be made to follow God. So, but what does that mean, right? So I want to hone in on the longing to be wholehearted. And like I said, Jesus never qualifies the invitation because he doesn't have to. You're made for it. So I'd like to illustrate something a little bit embarrassing, but a little bit real about wholeheartedness. I was an NSYNC fanatic. Wait, how many of you guys know NSYNC? Yes. Right, so, yes. NSYNC was so bomb. I went to all the concerts. So these are a few of my favorite things. Welcome to age 16 for me, right? These are a few of my favorite things. And a lot, you'll see up there, you'll see rivalries and favorite shows. Friends was my favorite show. I can still quote it to this day. I could beat any of you in trivia, trust me. Right? I love it. And I was thinking about, okay, so what if it's true? Like, I'm made for these things, and what maybe these longings are legitimate. What I wanted to point out about showing this slide was this, like, nobody taught me how to be fanatic. Nobody said, this is what it looks like to be obsessed. I just knew how to do it. Does that make sense? Some of you guys are like, oh my God, I cannot miss that show. Shut up. Nobody's telling you to do that. You know how to be obsessed with something. You know how to be wholeheartedly passionate about something. It's in your DNA. Listen, if you like Backstreet Boys, we had beef. Because I was a real fan. Like, there's no half-stepping. You can't be both, a fan of both. You gotta pick. You can't like Biggie and Pop. You gotta pick. Right? Something in our nature says, I have to choose. I want to be wholehearted about something. Listen, it's really hard to run a marathon with one foot in the bed. Right? None of us really likes to be half-hearted because we weren't created to be. And so I brought this slide to show you guys, nobody taught me to do that. I had bed sheets, I had posters, everything. Don't get it twisted. I was a fan, right? And so that's a cool slide and everything like that, and I thought you guys might notice that. Even with Monica and Brandy, like, I would never even sing any of Brandy's stuff. Monica all day.
All day. Not even close, son.
All day.
No.
Please. She could sing. And you knew you just had to pick one. You couldn't be half-hearted. And that's guys, this is low bar illustration. All of you guys know that you're passionate about something. Listen, all of you in this room, you're giving yourselves to something. Something has your affections because you were made to give your affections to something. It's the way you're wired. So it's cool. Like I was thinking through that, and yes, this is a funny illustration. But Jesus wants more than that. Like, he doesn't want to be a poster on your wall. He does not want groupies and fans. He wants disciples, and that's very, very different. Like, if Jesus is a poster on your wall with him, bang, up in my dorm room, yeah, that looks good, and then I go and I leave, I live how I want to live, and then I come back and I adore Jesus on my wall. That's not how he wants it to be. We don't leave Jesus in our dorm room. Jesus wants to akalutheo, that word, follow. He wants to walk alongside us, to walk the same path as. He wants to do life with us. Now, it's funny, like he doesn't manipulate with advertising, they like, try this drug, you may have nosebleeds, right? I'm like, slow down, because that thing feels like it's gonna kill me, right? But Jesus is so bomb that he does it the exact opposite. Like, when he calls people to follow him, he gives them all the side effects up front. He is that confident in his ability. He's that confident in who he is that he can go, look, if you want to be my disciple, you got to deny yourself. And you know what? People actually followed him still. He says, if you want to be my disciple, you're going to have to take up an instrument of death called a cross and follow after me. And people still followed him. That is crazy. He says, you know what? If you want to be my disciple, you have to love me more than life itself. Now, that doesn't mean that you live morbid and depressed, what that means is that you are not living truly unless you're following me. I want everything. He says it requires all of you. And look, none of us like craves self-denial. None of us are like, I cannot wait to wake up and die for the sake of Jesus. Nobody craves discomfort or pain. We spend our money and time trying to alleviate those things in life. But we do crave wholeheartedness and passion. And this is the deal with Jesus. He says you can't have one without the other. Like if you want to be passionate and wholehearted, it's going to bring pain sometimes.
Amen.
And discomfort sometimes.
Amen.
And he says that any other way of living is not actually life, even if it's easy and comfortable. It's not life. That's what Jesus is saying here. He says, I wired you to follow me. So when we choose to follow Jesus, we make him and his mission our obsession. We give him the first place in everything. We do it every area of life, from entertainment to study hall, from what we wear to where we go. He is the leader. He's the boss. That's what it means to follow Jesus. We go where he'd go. We do what he'd do. We love what he loves. We hate what he hates. In every single arena, in every single sphere of our entire lives, without hesitation, whether people are looking or not. That's what it means to follow Jesus.
Yep.
His name is tatted on everything. Your eyes, your ears, your affections, your time, your energies, your gifts.
Yeah.
So as I get ready to close, you guys know advertising, so I thought, why don't I end with an ad? So we're going to watch an Expedia commercial, and then, because I think that this really illustrates what was happening in the lives of these disciples, and I think this is what's going to happen in your life while you're here, if you let Jesus have his way. And in the commercial, this guy is like selling vacations, and basically you'll see people just pass right by him, they say no, they say, I have other things to do, and that's actually what Jesus encountered in the Gospels, you'll see. And so we're going to watch that, and then Smiley's going to come up in a second.
If you were asked to drop everything right now and go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Excuse me, sir. Can I ask you a quick question? If you could go anywhere in the world, a bucket list vacation, where would you go?
Maldives.
Greece.
Greece? Okay, cool. I'd like to show you that the new Expedia app is the easiest way to go anywhere. What if I could book you on a flight tonight? On right? You gotta go right now.
Bora Bora? Want to go to Bora Bora?
Bora Bora, of course. We're gonna put you on that flight tonight.
I can't do that. I can't.
Always like to go to China.
Nice. It's on the bucket list.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Go to China.
Yeah.
What if I told you Expedia will pay for that trip to China, but you have to drop everything and go right now?
Can I just go?
You take it off.
For real, right? Is this for real?
I'll leave it in 3 hours. You gotta hurry. You gotta go.
Seriously, what do I think to tell you?
2 hours. Passport. Roll.
I'm stuck in traffic and I'm headed to the airport right now. It's absolutely crazy. Can you come for me from like tomorrow onward through the rest of the week? I went to the Great Wall. I went to the freaking Great Wall of China. I went to one of the 7 wonders of the world. Like, it's one of the most majestic places. Tiananmen Square, the Forbidden Palace, like places that are on the back of postcards. I could have been home watching TV. And what a shame that would have been.